Erling Haaland, when will it stop? How can it stop? Please make it stop. That's what we're going to discuss on ESPN's Football Forecast. My name is James Allcott. I'm here with Kweku, Afari and Hugh, Woozencroft. Guys, let me give you some stats, and then I want you to give me some hope. Although, weirdly, should we just be basking in the glory of Erling Haaland right now? That's another question as well. But let me give you some stats first. Guys, this is outrageous. First of all, conversion rate for Erling Haaland, 42%. That's an absolute joke. Normally, if you're getting about 30% when it comes to your conversion rate, you're on course for about 25 plus goals per season. Average a goal every 48 minutes, 14 goals in 8 games. If he carries on like this, 57 more goals for him, and that will be 71 over the course of the season, and he will destroy Shearer's record of 260 goals by the time he's 26. So let's go to the start of this. First question, should we just be enjoying a fantastic striker scoring lots of goals?
100%. He's somebody that gets me giddy. I'm not a Man City fan. There's not many of them around, and he's just one of these. He's one of these strikers, one of these players that comes around, and the word generation was thrown around so much, but he is one of those players. We've never seen a player sign for a Premier League team in their prime when the anticipation for their debut was so palpable. Everybody was watching that West Ham game, ready to see what he was going to do, and he's duly delivered at every stage. So I think at this moment in time, despite the fact that teams and managers are trying to find out ways to stop him, as fans and observers of the game, you just got to enjoy it because we've never seen anything like this before.
Is it him or is it the team? What's the percentage? You know, how much is it about Man City being an amazing team and you put in this cyborg? And how much is it he's just a cyborg? Would he be scoring these amount of goals at any other team?
Well, he has done, so you can kind of suggest that he would be. Look, it was a big question mark. Is he going to make the step in the Premier League? You know, I think a lot of us would consider it to be above the Bundesliga. And he has. I mean, he's excelling. He's gone far and above any kind of predictions. But I do think Manchester City have started the season like a house on fire, particularly in the attacking sense. He has helped to that. To what degree? In terms of what they were doing previously, and this is the thing that I really need to outline. When we were talking about Manchester City last season and the season before, and Sergio Aguero wasn't what he used to be, and he was injured, wasn't in the team, and how were they going to cope? And what they did was they shared the goals around, and we lauded them for it. Wow, what did they have? 7 players in double figures. And we were sort of saying they found a way with a false 9 system. Could be Grealish, could be Foden through the middle. Doesn't matter who it is. Gundogan had that incredible purple patch, didn't he, as well? You know, they don't need Haaland. You know, all right, it's great to have him.
You consistently said that they did need a striker.
Yeah, they did need a striker. They did. I did consistently say that. But what I'm saying is, in terms of the number of goals shared around, why was that happening? It was happening because they didn't have a striker and they were rotating. We always talked about the front 3 rotating. Who was it going to be in the starting lineup? Usually they delivered goals, they delivered wins. Obviously they delivered a Premier League title as well, but they shared the attacking burden. What have they got now? Well, they don't need to share it at all. Yeah. He just gets the whole pie to himself.
Yeah.
Erling Haaland through the middle. You know where he's going to be. Physicality, speed, finishing ability, awareness, work rate. Absolutely fantastic. Not the same link-up play as when they had a false 9, because those players are natural midfielders. They wanted to get on the ball a little bit more, and I constantly complained that they didn't have that 6-yard box presence, and they do now.
Yeah.
But is it a real difference? Well, how many times did the ball trickle across the penalty box when they didn't have that number 9? That's the thing that always got to me, and that's the thing that they've addressed now. I would say he's taken them on. As an individual player, leaps and bounds, because he's a genuine goal-scoring striker. They haven't had one of those. But in terms of the overall team performance, I think he's taken them on 25-30%, which is still a huge amount, but I don't think it's 100% down to Erling Haaland.
I think there's psychology in this as well. You know, I'm looking at the stats here. In terms of the total team goals, 134 it would go up to the way they're playing. So they are running hot at this moment in time. But I think he's so imposing that some of these teams they're beaten before they even walk out. And I think that was a problem last season with Man City. And I think that's why they're such a strong team in league competitions as opposed to the Champions League knockout games, where we've just got to get to 90 minutes here. I know it's the same in terms of if you get yourself a draw, but in a cup competition, there is that just a little bit of difference, and the pressure's different as well. Mm-hmm. Do you think that teams are beaten before they even begin against this guy because he occupies two centre-backs on his own, right?
100%. It's demoralising for other teams. And we've seen it when Man City have been down and out in games this season. You take your man back to the Newcastle game. But Erling Haaland put his foot on the pedal and made sure they wouldn't lose that game. And like you say, some of it is psychological because Hugh rightly outlined that it was goals by committee previously with Man City. They shared the goals around. But there's a different sort of emphasis now with Erling Haaland, and everybody dreamt and envisaged Kevin De Bruyne distributing the balls into the box and Erling Haaland being on the end of those crosses. And that's what we've seen. You see a different type of emphasis from players like De Bruyne, from players like Phil Foden, just because they've got that man in the box who they are confident will finish the chances. Raheem Sterling was a brilliant servant for Man City, but we saw him miss a lot of chances. Erling Haaland, he has a single-mindedness where he doesn't want to get involved in the build-up. He doesn't want to get involved in anywhere that doesn't mean he's scoring goals for the team. Yeah. And that's what his biggest strength is, and that's what he's brought to the rest of this Man City team, that single-mindedness that we are going to score goals. And you saw it when they played against Copenhagen midweek in the Champions League. They put their foot on the pedal and they weren't going to relent. And that's what Erling Haaland brings with that mentality and also that incredible ability as well.
Because, the couple of wobbly games, if we can even call it that, I would say is that Newcastle game and the Dortmund game, they defended very well. And it was just, and we've seen this a few times. I think what I find so impressive about him is his movement on the blind side of the defender. And so you're seeing quite a few of those goals at that back post. We saw it against Man United last week, and De Bruyne can put it, on a plate for him there. Let's get to the point of this. How are we stopping this? How do you stop Erling Haaland? I guess the one thing, if I'm being really out of order, is, are they a little bit one-dimensional this season?
No, to be honest, I don't think they are. Because I think if you look at some of the other players in the team who are chipping in, you think of the likes of Phil Foden scoring a hat-trick in the Manchester derby as well, also 22 years old. He's having much more of an impact this year, and it comes off the back of Haaland. I don't know what Phil Foden's best position is. He's an incredibly talented player, but actually, he can just pick off the crumbs, if you like, of whatever Haaland doesn't eat and gobble up in front of goal, because he stretches teams, Haaland, and he leaves that space in behind him if it doesn't go into the 6-yard box for those arriving on the penalty box. If he's not within the width of the goal and he's slightly pushed out, it leaves space for another player, because those centre-backs, as you point out, are so concerned with keeping him from scoring. So I think in that regard, there are other players in the Manchester City team who we will see perform better because Haaland's giving them the room to do so. He's, if you're a defender, you just have to worry about him first and foremost. But actually, I think the only thing that stops him right now is Manchester City going through a bad period of form. If their defence in particular, they've conceded a few goals in several games this season. If they have a bad run defensively, or if they have injuries, we've seen what's happened with Kyle Walker, if that affects them negatively, then you could see it have an effect at the other end of the pitch, because obviously Manchester City like to completely crush their opposition into their own half, dominate the ball. If they drop off 5-10%, maybe he does the same. But personally, I can't see it happening.
So can you give me a plan of how to stop this Man City team?
There is no stopping them, really. I feel like they looked at it last season. We saw how close the title race was, and it went down to the last game of the season. They really shouldn't have. That's the Liverpool team being perfect. Yeah. We know about the abundance of talent the City have got, how well they've invested, how much they've recouped from players that they've sold that weren't really even playing. City should be far and away the best team in the country, and they shouldn't really be close. And adding Haaland just really seals that. And in terms of tactical standpoint, when they come up against other teams, unless Haaland's having an off day, unless Man City are having an off day and they don't take their chances, there's no real way you can stop it, because there are so many players around them. If you look at a player like Phil Foden, who Hugh touched on there, he's having the season of his life. Last season, he scored 9 goals and 5 assists. This season's already on 5 and 3. Exceeding his expected goals. He's becoming more clinical. Haaland's bringing the best out of the players around him. So when you maybe can stop Haaland and maybe can limit what he does in the game, you've got other players who are stepping up their game because they've got somebody so good up top. So the short answer is no, you can't stop Erling Haaland.
Maybe 2 words I've got for you. Julian Alvarez. If he gets more of an opportunity, if he shows us that he too can score goals in this team, a genuine backup to Erling Haaland, maybe he'll get a few more starts, and maybe that means Haaland because that is just the only way I can see it happening.
Okay, right. Let's put this one to the comments here, guys. I'll give you two options of a plan, right? And which one is the lesser of two evils? Because we know it's very, very difficult. You have that low block that pretty much every team does against them, but that means that Erling Haaland gets to spend 70% of a game in the penalty box pretty much. Or do you play, not a high line, you try and be brave with the ball, try and keep possession, a bit like Newcastle did, and stay a little bit higher up. I think both are very, very difficult and play into Man City's hands in different ways. But what would your plan be? Let us know in the comments below.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.